College essays are hard, and the hardest part of a college essay is putting in unique thought. Here's the fact. If there's a moment in your college essay, or even better, if there's a few moments in your college essay, where the reader stops and says, wow, I never would have thought of something like that, or I've never looked at it that way before, you're golden. That's the best response you can possibly have for a college essay. One of the first exercises we do to help you build this style of thinking is to take a common proverb, a common cliche proverb, and reverse it, flip it around. In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to do that. I'm going to give two types of things that you can do. One is disagreeing with a cliche or disagreeing with a proverb. And the next one is going to be actually reversing the cliche. It's a little bit trickier. So I've given an example of a common cliche. Insanity is doing the same thing again and again and expecting different results. This saying is often attributed to Albert Einstein. If he actually said it or not, I have no idea, but that's who it's often attributed to. So I want to, in this case, I'm going to show you guys just how to disagree with this. Let's think of some examples of things where you actually do the same thing again and again, and you do expect different results. An obvious one that comes to my mind is working out. You're doing basically the same thing again and again, but over time, gradually, you expect your body to change, you expect your strength to increase, you expect your overall athletic ability to improve. So you're actually doing the same thing again and again, and you are expecting different results, and no one calls working out insane at all. So that's a way that we might disagree with this cliche. So that's the first level, and it's not bad, but we can take it to a more interesting level by reversing cliches. What that means is taking the cliche and turning it on its head. It's not just disagreeing. It's a little bit more complicated than that. The worksheet you're on right now called Reversing Cliches, you're going to get plenty of practice, but I'm going to give you just two examples to help you think about this. The first is people who live in glass houses should not throw stones. Now, disagreeing with it would be just people who live in glass houses should throw stones. In other words, if you find yourself in a glass house, break out of it with some stones. So that's one way to look at it. And that's disagreeing. Reversing it is a little bit different. There's a lot of ways you can reverse this. In this case, I might try that people who don't throw stones end up in glass houses. What does that mean? I mean, it could mean a lot of things, but one way to say it is that if you aren't willing to challenge ideas, if you aren't willing to, proverbially throw stones and challenge other people's ideas, then you end up in a glass house, which in this case might be an idea of a limited intellectual mindset, a prison of foolishness, however you want to look at it. So reversing this cliche is not just disagreeing, it's flipping it around. So in this case, people who don't throw stones end up in glass houses is how you would reverse it. Let's look at the next one. Birds of a feather flock together. Disagreeing would just be birds of a feather don't flock together. And you could make an interesting point with that. You can say something like people who are very similar often avoid each other. Opposites attract, as they say. Or you might talk about how in various group dynamics, you don't have in a single group 25 leaders. It would be madness. You have some people who are more comfortable with a leadership role, some are more comfortable in support roles, some are more comfortable in an advisory role. So that's just disagreeing with the cliche, and it's not bad. It's a good way to start. But let's talk about reversing the cliche. Reversing it would be that birds who flock together become of a feather, or people who flock together become of a feather. In other words, that would mean that people that you surround yourself with end up changing who you are. You end up becoming more like those people, for better or worse. And that might lead to a nice discussion in terms of the type of people that you either do or don't want to surround yourself with. It can become a discussion on not wanting to be of a single feather, to have many different types of experiences, many different groups that you spend time with. You can spin it in a million different ways. Now, the idea of reversing cliches, you can play this game all day long. You can list any cliche and just turn it around. Here are a few guidelines. You don't want to make it negative. In other words, if it's something like, if there's a will, there's a way, you're not going to be, you don't want to be like, yes, sometimes there just isn't a way, because, I mean, what's the point of that? That's not inspiring. It's not interesting. It's just sounds negative. It's a downer. So that's not really a great way to do it. Instead, you want to find ways to turn things around, to really come up with something that's different, that has turned the entire thing on its head. And there's more than one way to reverse most of these cliches. I've given you a couple over here, but there are more ways that if you think about that, you might come up with on your own. You might come up with ones I've thought of, and you might come up with something that I've never even considered, and that would be great, because if I haven't thought of it, there's a good chance the college application committee hasn't thought of it, and you'll get that amazing moment of, wow, I never thought of that when somebody's reading your essay. We're going to talk about later in the strategy sessions and later in the program exactly what you do with this skill, but right now let's focus on building the skill, which is finding a way to think cleverly and uniquely and differently about a very common way of thinking. Now, right now, you're probably on that reversing cliches worksheet. Go back to it and really give it your best and really see if you can think about changing those cliches in an interesting, positive, and unexpected way.